Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing really well. 2023 is over, another 12 months. I read 53 books this year, which I think is my best by quite a way. I don't consider myself like a particularly voracious reader or someone that reads like 100 books in a year, but I was pretty happy with 53. I set myself a goal of 40. So yeah, really happy with that. And I thought as it is the end of another year, I would do my top 10 of 2023. They're not in any particular order, like the bottom 5. I don't want to call them the bottom 5 because they're my top 10, but the bottom 5 of my top 10 are sort of the second, and then the top 5 of my top 10 are kind of first. So loads of joint seconds, loads of joint firsts. That's a real cop out, but I loved all of these books, but for very different reasons. So yeah, let's jump in. At number 10, we have Price War by Richard Holliday. This is Richard's, God, I don't even know. I think it's his first dystopian novel that he's released. This is Price War. It's book 1 of what is a series. I'm currently betaing the second book actually, and it's really fun. Price War, I would recommend it to you if you love a dystopian novel, if you are intrigued and like interested in how big corporations such as Amazon can become too strong and what it means when they're too strong, and the impact that that size company can have on a government. It's really interesting. The characters are great fun. It's very British, and I definitely recommend it. Number 9 is The House on the Cerulean Sea by J Klunes. This is obviously a very different genre to number 10. This is a YA kind of fantasy. It's very sweet, it's very wholesome. I absolutely adored every single character, and after I read this book I then devoured everything else that J Klunes has out. I think that they are now one of my favourite authors. If you're after a fantasy that's not got too much threat but has a little bit, then definitely give J Klunes a try. Different genre again at number 8. I'm Glad My Mum Died by Jenette McCurdy. I actually bought my mum this for Mother's Day and had her open it in a restaurant, surrounded by other people out celebrating Mother's Day. Probably not the best gift, I suppose, but she enjoyed it. I found it incredibly interesting. Lots of trigger warnings, mental health, eating disorders. Gosh, the list probably goes on. But yeah, really interesting look into child acting and how that can impact your relationship with your family, especially if it's already a little bit troubled. Just like the impact that that can have on your family and those relationships. I found this book super interesting. Definitely not one for if you're not in the best headspace, but I would recommend it. I listened to the audiobook and it's read by Jenette McCurdy, which I just found even more of a good experience. It was very immersive, very interesting. Definitely recommend. In at number 7 we have Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. This is different again. I think all of these have been completely different genres so far. So Dead Silence is a horror sci-fi thriller. Yeah, sure. I absolutely devoured this. Again, it's another one that I listened to on an audiobook. It was so immersive. The narration was really good. I would recommend this book for anyone that loves Alien or Event Horizon. That kind of like, there are potentially aliens involved, possibly some kind of like intergalactic disease. Super interesting. I very much enjoyed it. I'll definitely read more by S.A. Barnes, and this definitely put me in a proper little sci-fi horror binge at the beginning of this year. Number 6 is Bunny by Mona Awad. Again, another genre. I don't entirely know what box to put this one in. I guess technically it's a thriller, but dark academia, horror-y, psychedelic. Very weird. If you're not afraid of getting stuck into something weird and deeply unsettling, definitely give Bunny a go. It's up there, one of my favourite books of all time now. I just found it so strange and so trippy. I also love an unreliable narrator, which I know it's not everyone's favourite thing, but I really like it. So if that is your cup of tea, definitely give Bunny a go. Next up we have a fantasy. I'm not sure, I don't think it's YA, but yeah, just a straight sort of magical realism, and that is The Shadow Cabinet by Dawson. I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion, but I actually preferred the second book, this one, to the first book, Her Majesty's Royal Coven. I just, the twist at the end of Her Majesty's Royal Coven and then picking that up in the second novel it just had me absolutely. I finished the first one and then immediately purchased the second one and just started it straight away. I really, really enjoyed it. Again, another great cast of characters, felt very timely, very relevant, but handled in like a really interesting way. I hope this book speaks to a lot of people. I thoroughly enjoyed it and definitely recommend it. So these top 4 are kind of all number 1, I suppose. I really struggled to decide which one was my favourite. And as I said earlier, this list, like, they're all my favourites, but for different reasons, and they're all totally different genres generally. So I find it quite hard to compare genres that are so different. I feel like you're not comparing like for like, and it's just, it doesn't have to be a competition, you know. It's creative and reading and books, and you can love them all for different reasons. But anywho, this is my top 4. They're all equally as good as each other. But yes, number 4, we have Yellowface by F Kuang. I read Babel last year, and it was probably I think I did say it was my favourite book of last year. I absolutely adored Babel. I thought it was dark and just, oh, delicious, and everything, just everything. So I pretty quickly grabbed Yellowface when that came out. Again, I really, really enjoyed this book. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. I think it's quite critically acclaimed, but not so much by like general readers, which is quite interesting. But I found it really, really interesting to sort of examine those characters, and I am just an absolute sucker for an unlikable character, and actually pretty much all of the characters were unlikable. I love that kind of setup, where you're kind of tested, like, do you empathize with a character that you really, really shouldn't because they're just an awful person? And then sometimes you find that you do a little bit, and it makes you like kind of investigate why that is and like really pick apart your reactions and stuff. That's why I found Yellowface really, really interesting. I think a lot of people say that it's quite reductive, which I can definitely see an argument for that. But I enjoyed it regardless. It's really good. At number 3, we have a modern classic, one of the only modern classics that I think I read this year, and that's The Beljar by Sylvia Plath. I feel like this is a very trendy book to have as your favourite if you've just finished A-level English, but I never read it at school, so I'm a bit late to it. But The Beljar is just so good. Sylvia Plath's life, incredibly interesting, died way before her time, way before she should have done. But yeah, such an interesting, quite a short book, but yeah, really vivid, very, very interesting. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Number 2 is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Reid. If you can't tell from this list, most of the things that I read this year did not come out this year. A couple of them did, but most of them didn't. This one definitely did not. But I absolutely loved it. I can't believe that I haven't read this before. I think I borrowed it from my brother during lockdown in 2020 and didn't get around to reading it. So I just got around to reading it this year, and I absolutely devoured it. I loved it. It was weird. There was very strange imagery, just the whole thing. Again, another unreliable narrator. Big fan. I loved Iain Reid's style of writing. I did also then immediately watch the film after reading this, and I do not know that I enjoyed it. but sure, book, great. Film, if you treat it as a separate piece of media, maybe. Last but by no means least is my number 1 book of the year, and this probably, after a lot of going to and fro, probably is my favourite book of this year. And again, it's a completely different genre, and not a genre that I'm normally a massive fan of. It is YA, historical fantasy, romance. Yeah, 3 things I don't tend to dabble in, but it was Gwen Art Are Not in Love by Lex Croucher. I adore absolutely everything that Lex Croucher just writes. I think they're an incredible writer. I love their wit. It feels very British to me, it's very English sense of humour. It's very sarcastic and very witty and quite dry. I loved all of the characters. I'm not sure I was meant to love Art, but clearly he was the best character. Oh, and the cat. The whole thing was just absolutely perfect. I loved the entire thing. It's basically A Knight's Tale, but LGBTQ+, and yeah, pretty different. I mean, the story is different, but it's got the kind of vibe of A Knight's Tale, that kind of humour. I absolutely adored it, and yeah, Lex Croucher has become that author for me where I don't even think twice before buying their stuff, and I always seem to read it when I'm on holiday, which maybe helps. But yeah, Gwen and Art Are Not in Love, absolutely read it. I loved it. So that is it for my top 10 books of 2023. What was your favourite book of this year? I'll leave all the links down below for any books if anyone wants to keep an eye out for them or wants to grab them and put them on a wish list. I obviously recommend all of them. Thanks for watching. If you did like this video, please do give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel. And I will see you next year or later this year, depending on when this is, with another one. Bye.